My name is Kristy Rice, and I'm obsessed with watercolor. I love the way it makes us feel and the way it can literally make your life better. I was put on this earth to pave a way for you, the watercolor curious, to harness joy from putting brush to paper. I will teach you like no one else has because I create rule breakers, free spirits, and together we will push back on negative self-talk and fear. You want to paint with me? Come on, let's go. Hey friends, welcome to my home studio. And I am so excited about what we're about to experience together. It's going to be a blast. So the thing that I hear the most in terms of frustration when it comes to starting this watercolor journey from scratch, or maybe revisiting watercolor after not having painted for a while, is I don't know what to paint. I'm sure you felt that. I know I have. I've been painting almost my entire life since I was 6 years old. And I feel that almost weekly. So if that tells you anything. But there's a solution. Today we're going to do 3 different exercises, and they are quick and they are simple and they are versatile. You can turn them into different things and experiment with them. But you can go back to these 3 exercises again and again and again. Every time you have that thought, I don't know what to paint, you can go back to these. I cannot wait. All right, friends, with this one, I am using my Winsor & Newton Professional Series watercolors. I'm spraying them down to get them nice and juicy. You want the texture to almost be like syrup. This is called paint scraping. I'm sure this isn't anything new, but you see it a lot with other mediums. You don't see it with watercolor as much. So I'm just gonna call it watercolor paint scraping. It is a great way to just loosen yourself up and get into it. This is the first exercise that I would go to if you literally don't know what to paint and you're feeling discouraged, because it's quick to get into, it's quick to get something really beautiful, and you'll get inspired and you'll be on your way in no time. All right, I'm just getting color down on the page. Puddles of color, this is key. You want to get a lot of pigment on this page. Let things run into each other or not, that is up to you. Your puddles can touch, mine certainly are, or your puddles can be separated, totally up to you. I'm using a big chunk of gesso. Place that wherever. This is experimentation. This is play, friends. Do what feels fun. Do what feels good. I always say make art in a way that keeps you inspired. Don't worry about rules. Don't worry about what should I, how should I, when should I. Do what feels good. And this exercise is the epitome of doing what feels good in your art, because there is literally no right or wrong way. Okay, now we've got a bunch of puddles. We've got a little bit of gesso. Just grab a scrap of paper and literally we're going to scrape down. Go slowly and scrape, pull downward. You can press a little bit down and just see what happens. I guarantee you all you're going to want to do is just do it over again because it is so satisfying. Don't ever say to yourself again, I don't know what to paint, because now you know. All right, let's try it again. See what happens. Experiment with a couple of different details. How juicy, how wet, how puddly are your puddles of color? You can do more dry puddles that aren't so full of pigment. You can add in different paint brands. You can make puddles from your Winsor & Newtons and then make puddles from your Crayolas. You can add in acrylic. How about some metallics, friends? This is the time to experiment. All right, here we go again, and we are gonna scrape and see what we see. And friends, what I see is me feeling really excited about how these 2 scrapes look. They're incredible. I'm gonna show you at the end what you can do with some of this crazy art that you're making, but hang tight. I've got 2 more exercises for you. All right, friends, I have another exercise for you. We're gonna be using Crayolas. That's right. I do put my Crayolas in a vintage tin because I like to be a little extra, the dagger brush, and a pencil. I'm using a cold pressed watercolor paper, just some scraps that I had. Okay, I am literally just going to sketch some ovals. They do not need to be perfect. Hear me loud and clear, they should not be perfect. Just rando circles, ovals, whatever you want. You could do any shape, you could do hearts, and then I'm painting in with clean water. If your water isn't perfectly clean, it's not a big deal. Then I'm grabbing my Crayolas. Now I have sprayed these so they're nice and juicy, syrupy kind of texture. I'm using the tip of my brush and I'm going into the wet area and I'm dabbing in some color and I'm letting it explode as it feels like it wants to, right? Watercolor, friends, is all about surrender. If you've been painting for a while, you know that. You know that feeling. You have to give in to watercolor most times. Watercolor is not going to give in to you. So this is an exercise in just that. Surrendering to what the pigment wants to do in the water. This is also a great way to get to know a new brush. This is also a great way to get to know new watercolor pigments that you may have picked up. So if you're tired of the same old kind of swatching technique, you can do this to swatch out a new set of watercolors. So fun. So literally you just continue on and you can either wet your oval with clean water first and drop in color with the tip of your brush or the side of your brush, or you can go right into an oval with color right from the palette, right on the dry page. And you let those colors bump up next to each other, let them mingle, let them play, and see what happens. That's the beauty of these exercises. They allow you, they give you the space and the time to see what happens, to experiment. And I know it seems simple, the idea of experimenting, but a lot of times in life we forget, because what is experiment? It's just play, right? And as adults, we forget that we too need to play. I know, it's so simple. But once you realize how valuable play is to the creative spirit, it unlocks a whole world to you. All right, so you're just gonna continue on, adding water, adding color, letting things bump up and mingle. Oh, it kind of sounds like we're at like a bar. No, I'm kidding. There's that sense of humor. Anyway, friends, this is so fun. You can literally fill the whole page. Don't be nervous about getting your pencil into the wet areas. That's the point. Just keep going, keep playing, have at it. Have some areas be bolder in color. See what you can do by just kind of moving the pigment that's already on the page with a wet brush into areas that aren't painted yet. Play around with different ways to fill this page with ovals, water, and pigment. Try to stay in the lines if you really want to learn a new brush and you're not familiar with the brush you're using. The more strict you are with staying inside of those lines, inside of those ovals, the more you're going to discover about that brush you're using. Have fun with this one, friends. It's a good one. Now, another great thing that you can do here is mix brands, mix mediums. Yes, that's right. I'm taking some ink. This is just like an India ink, and I am dropping it into the wet areas. And do you see what's happening? Do you see that craziness? So fun. So this is another great exercise if your goal is to figure out how different pigments that you have in your arsenal, how they mix together, how they play together. Don't be afraid to mix brands, but experiment. Figure out what works, figure out what doesn't. Friends, we are now going on to a third and final exercise, and it is right from my newest book. It's all about circles. Simple exercise, all about circles. We're going to be tracing with a cup. We're going to be painting with clean water onto our circles, and then we're going to be dropping in pigment. Oh yeah, let's do this. Okay, friends. Now I'm recording this one at night because I really want you to see just how much water I'm using for this one. So get ready. Okay, we're using the dagger brush again. And I'm using a pencil, of course. We need a pencil. Use whatever you want. Even use a pen if you want. And a mug. Any old mug will do. I'm also using gesso. You can use any type of white you want, gouache, white watercolor, but gesso really spreads in the ink. All right, now let's trace some circles. Now, ink is the most like wow factor for this. So some type of like watercolor, liquid watercolor, or actual like India ink. But you could do this with plain old watercolor too. You just won't get the explosions that you're about to see as like wildly, if that makes sense. So ink is best. Trace your circles. Use all different size circles if you want. Get all different items if you want. And then we are going to go ahead and we're going to paint these circles with water. I think you know where I'm going here. Now, I'm going to zoom in just a moment so you can really see how much water I'm using, because that's important. The more water you use, literally I'm creating puddles. Yeah, puddles of water on the page. And the more water you use, the more, in my opinion, I feel things move. Once that ink hits the paper, it really starts to dance. So look at that. See how much water I'm using. Okay, so this exercise, I'm just going to talk a little bit about why this exercise is incredible and why you can go back to it again and again and again. It's going to help you better understand your brushes if you focus on staying within the lines. I know. We were taught for years as kids. Well, actually, we were taught as kids to stay in the lines. And then as adults, they wanted us to color outside the lines. But we want to stay in the lines for this one. If you want to practice brush handling. Did you just see what I did with that ink, friends? Did you see? Did you see? And that's literally the gist of this. You can do this. Literally paint the circles with clean water and then use the eyedropper of your ink bottle and drop in ink and then just play. But as you go, you're going to have these beautiful opportunities to shape those circles, to reshape those circles, to stay within the lines of the circles. And in the process of creating something really kind of cool looking, you're also, look at that, just like that, you're teaching yourself how to better handle your brush. And I love that. So it's like a low stress watercolor exercise. It's also, of course, something to paint when you don't know what to paint, when you don't have a clue as to what to paint, right? And I'm just taking some water and extending that pink ink into the next circle. You could have just rinsed your brush and filled that next circle with clean water, but I carried the pink over and now I'm dropping in some blue. The other thing I love about this exercise, you can mix different brands. You can use ink and watercolor, and you can see how things interact and what pigments and what brands play nicely together. Now, I highly recommend picking up the page at some point and doing a little dance, because look at the happy accidents happening all up in here. Seriously. Back to cleanish water, and I'm going to let that green kind of creep on over. Isn't that gorgeous? I did not paint this section of the circle with water first. I just went right in with a damp brush and kind of carried some of the existing ink on the page over. And there's that brush handling again. Love this. Fill that in, and literally, friends, just keep going. Go right off the edge of the page. Keep going till you feel like you don't want to go anymore. More circles, more tracing. This is so fun. It's stress relieving. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to show you a little bit later what you can do with this once it's dry, because you can keep going. And this can be your go-to when you don't know what the heck to paint. So officially, friends, you no longer have that excuse. I know, I'm kind of being hard on you, but seriously, you no longer have the excuse. I've given you 3 exercises that you can edit, transform, evolve in so many different ways so that you never have to feel like you don't know what to paint. So if you get the urge to paint, you always know what you can do. I love it. Now, you really want to level up? Add some white. This is where the gesso comes in. Go ahead and add some white to the really wet areas. And the white gesso in the wet areas of color acts almost like marbling. And it's so fascinating to watch. Look at that. Isn't that incredible? So I know you're going to have fun with that. I mean, you could take a toothpick and drag it through. Like, you could literally pretend you're marbling. Yeah, incredible. It's like a science experiment. These exercises are so exciting because every time you decide to do one of them, they always look different. Look at that blue. Look at that blue. It's so fun. Now, if you want to use watercolors for this, I have one piece of advice. Spray down your palette and get your watercolor pans, or however you use watercolors. I do a lot of half pans. Get those pans, get those watercolors super juicy. Now, that's one of my words. Juicy basically means syrupy. So you want that pigment really loosened up, really smooth, so that you get a lot on the page with one stroke of the brush. So that is my little trick if you just have watercolors and you don't want to go out and buy inks. You can still do this and have tons of fun with it. Look at that. Isn't it gorgeous? I love too that you can get super intense, but you can also get super dreamy. You don't have to have all the intense pigment to have fun with this exercise. You can just do really soft, lots and lots of water, not so much pigment. Have fun with this. Okay, friends, if you want to take these 3 exercises to the next level, let's do this. I've got a pink pen and I'm going over top of that scraping art after it's dry, of course, and I am sketching. I'm doodling. Just get in there with a fun, brightly colored pen and have at it. And then you can turn this into a number of things. You could turn them into little cards or tags or frame them for a gift. Just trim off the sides. This is so fun if you want to take your painting exercises and make them into something tangible beyond the exercise. Now, listen, you don't have to turn your painting exercises into anything. Your art does not need to have a function, but if you want it to, here's some ideas. All right, now those crazy ovals, I am just going to tear this thing up and we're gonna turn this into a super casual gift tag. That's right. And there's a bonus here. There's a mindset bonus in this one because tearing up your artwork, not to throw it out, but just to transform it is very cathartic. It's a challenge because it feels weird. It feels like you're destroying something, but tearing up your artwork and turning it into something new is a great challenge that I invite you to try. Yeah, so we just tear it up, write to and from on the back, punch a hole, and you're good to go. Thread some ribbon through there and you have a gift tag. Okay, I'm feeling like very Martha Stewart right now. I gotta stop. All right, and last but not least, what can we do with these circles, these inky circles? Well, friends, I want you to grab a marker. Now, I'm grabbing a marker that is kind of on its way out. It doesn't have a lot of life left in it, but I'm doing that by design. And I'm literally just gonna doodle into these circles. But each circle is gonna be a little different. I'm gonna start off with leaves and little round shapes and just keep going with that. Fill that circle. You decide where your fill stops and starts because you've got some overlaps, right? So you're gonna have to make some decisions, but don't think about it too long. Just keep doodling. Add some stripes, add a big flower. You could also do this with paint on a brush and sketch with your brush. Bringing in some white would be super cool. I think I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do some circles over here, but notice every big circle I'm filling with a different type of doodle. Now, what is this, you might be wondering? It's nothing. It's just another way to continue exercising your artistic skills and challenge yourself. This isn't actually gonna turn into anything. Now, certainly you could trim this down to 5x7 and turn it into a gift, frame it, and be on your way. But your artwork doesn't always have to have a utilitarian function, so this can just be making art for art's sake. I'm adding some white now. How cool is that? That's it, friends. Just get in there and doodle and keep layering on, and see what happens. All right, friends, I hope you leave this session today with a renewed sense of inspiration. You never have to feel like you're out of inspiration. You'll never have to think too long about, okay, what should I paint? I don't know what to paint. That is no longer part of your art journey. I'm so glad you were here with me today. I hope you try these exercises. If you painted along with me, bravo, super fun. Love this, friends. And all I gotta say now is happy painting.